You just got to work with what you got, right? How did you start doing stuff?
I've been doing that for years.
Exactly. Cool. Well, let's just get rolling. This is episode 5 now. Coffee and Conversations. We're sitting here with Joe TEBALDI in the red and Chris Webster in the blue flex shirt, the shirt that I've been wanting for the last 2 months.
I was going to bring one today and give it to you because I thought that you were going to say that line. I was like, wouldn't it be so funny to be like, actually, but then I forgot it. But like the thought was there and I heard that counts. So
I guess I just have to wait until you guys have like an online store or something. A little bit of background. I went to school with Chris. He is was my college roommate for 2 years. And Joe is now Chris's boss. And Flexx is Joe's company. And we are in the office where Flexx is. This is a co-working space called Huga in Charlotte. And Flexx has a dedicated office space. And I don't know, you receive mail here and stuff?
Yeah. This is kind of just the working address.
But let's back it up a little bit because I know Chris very well. Tell me a little bit about Joe. Where did you? First of all, you went to school. You played baseball, right? Mm-hmm. Where at?
I started at University of Delaware, and then I played a year at community college, and then I went down to Lander University in South Carolina.
Oh, Lander, yeah.
Good old Lander.
We played against Lander in golf.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where'd you? Or you guys went over here?
Queens.
What, outside? Was it non-conference or something like that?
Yeah, because they're D2.
D2.
Yeah, D2.
We're D2 too.
Huh. But you guys are in the Peach Belt? Was that the Peach Belt?
No.
Yeah, so it must have been a non-conference game.
Well, we switched.
Oh, you guys have tournaments and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, so we go all over the place.
I think that's some golf
Joe just reminded me. This is a natural Ethiopia Guji Shikiso, also from Pure Intentions, like most of my coffee. But
Guji.
Yeah, Guji.
This is much better than the stuff that Chris brews on a daily basis.
That's good.
It's Starbucks.
I told him how to weigh it out and get the
16 to
right
1.
ratio. Yeah, exactly. And he was like, "No, we just use the scoop."
Yeah.
Not from now on.
This is
we will weigh it
delicious.
out.
Yeah, this is great.
That's actually really good. It tastes like blueberries.
I love
So how'd you end up? Well, Delaware and Lander. What were you doing besides baseball? What'd you study?
So I went to school for computer science. First day of college. You're getting to college stories now.
Yeah.
So first day of school, get into my first computer science class. I'm super pumped. My brother's like 10 years older than me. He was heavily into computer science. Like he got a job. The job market was great when he got out of the University of Pennsylvania. Was recruited to go work in a startup company. So it was pretty cool. I was excited about it. I've never done anything with it. So I get into my first class and they hand you out a test. And it's like, this is what you should know. And I knew like one thing on it. And I'm like, this is gonna be a tough class. And 10 minutes into the class, he's describing how we're gonna have to spend a minimum of 15 hours, or 10 to 15 hours a week in the labs. Because that's the only place that they're running this proprietary software that's needed for this class. So they couldn't install it on our laptops. So we had to be there. But I played baseball. Right. And it was the same time that the lab was open. So I couldn't, that was interesting. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is my first day of school. And I'm already like, this is gonna be terrible. So the guy's like, these are the rules and there are no exceptions. He's like, we make no exceptions for this. He's like, I don't wanna hear anything. He's like, if you don't hit your lab hours, you will get a bad grade.
Now, is that just something that like every professor says, you need to spend 3 hours doing the work for this class out for every class hour that we have?
Yeah, so this was like
but
not
like
a recommendation.
Really
This was a grade.
Yeah.
So like you actually got graded on the amount of time you spent at the lab. So this was like an extra grade above and beyond. Anyway, so at the end of it, it's a short class, it's syllabus day, right? And he goes, are there any questions? And I raised my hand, I said, how do you switch your major? And that's when I realized, I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a class clown because I don't know what I'm doing. And so that day I went to our advisor, we had an advisor for baseball, and I dropped my major that first day because I was like, I just can't do this. And I switched over into business marketing with a minor in MIS. So it's like I didn't have to completely drop computer science, but it just couldn't be my major. So I started with that. That's what I did for the first 2 years of school. I transferred out of Delaware, spent a year at home. And then when I came back down to Lander, I had a ton of credits because I took like AP classes in high school, and then you go to college and you have all those credits, and I went through an extra year of college. So I had over 100 credits going into the school, and they're like, yeah, we can only take 70. And I'm like, okay, like which ones? And they're like, well, you can either drop all these MIS classes and you can graduate on time, or you can keep all those, but you're gonna have to like almost restart your major. And I'm like, well, that's
the MIS major or the business
the
major?
business major. So I'm like, well, this sounds terrible because like their MIS classes were not up to the same standard. Like I was already done these classes, and the ones that they would have made me take were almost a step backwards. So like, this doesn't make any sense. So obviously I took the business side of things, and I literally dropped my major. So I've taken probably 6 or 7 MIS classes, but couldn't do anything with them. So I graduated with a business marketing degree.
Nice.
And then worked at Walgreens.
What'd you do?
That's what happens.
What'd you do in the year off? Why the year off? Was it injury or just not the right time and place for you?
When I was at Delaware, I think there were a lot of complications with the teams and stuff like that, but I was a catcher when I went to school, and I wasn't catching. So I redshirted my freshman year, and then my sophomore year I started pitching, which was fun, and it could have been its own adventure, and I loved Delaware. Like I love the University of Delaware. But at that point in my life, I guess in my 19 or 20-year-old brain, it was like, you went to school to play baseball. Like you're gonna literally have an entire collegiate career not getting a single at bat, or never getting to play the position that you trained for 8-10 years. Yeah. So I left. My dad was a little sick at the time also, so it was like kind of worked out that I just stayed at home. There were also a ton of complications around switching schools, because when you're NCAA, like going from D1, you can't go to another D1 without taking a year off, and I was like, how much longer am I really going to be in school? So actually, before I went to community college, I was going to go to Lynn University. In Boca Raton.
I know about Lynn.
So,
you played against them too.
Did you?
Yeah.
So it was
a friend that went to Lynn.
Awesome offer, right? They're a super expensive school, but they were like, listen, like your academics are going to get you so much money here. Like we only have to give you like 5% baseball, and you'll have a full ride. And I'm like, yeah, done. I'm in. So that's how it went the entire summer. And then they called me in August, and I was actually at a tournament, and I got a phone call in between games, and it was a voicemail that said, we just checked in with our admissions, and they said they can't give that much academic scholarship to a transfer. They can only give you $1,500. So it was the difference between $42,000 and $1,500. And we already allotted the rest of the baseball money. Are you still in? And I'm like, no. Like you just went from me paying nothing to me paying $48,000 a year. I was like, so no. And now I'm sitting there on the bench, and I'm like, I'm screwed. Like I'm literally not going to go to school next year. I don't know what to do. Like it's too late for anybody new to sign me. Well, word got around on the bench, and someone in the stands heard, and they knew that they needed a catcher at a local community college, and they were like, hey, they're actually pretty good. Would you want to play there? And I'm like, well, yeah. Where else am I going to play? So
literally, like you got a voicemail, and then like somebody in the stands found you a place to go to school
that day, and I was on the phone with the coach of the school by the end of the tournament, and I signed. I'm like, yeah, I have nowhere else to go. Yeah. So I spent a year there, and that was fun. I mean, we made it to the College World Series. Like it was a pretty fun year. And then after that, I was supposed to go back to another D1 school because you could do a 4-2-4 transfer.
Right.
And one thing after another kind of fell through there. With a whole nother story about should have gone to a different school. And then a buddy of mine played at Lander, and his dad was like, you should go, and you check it out. And I was kind of like up against the wall again. So I'm like, I signed sight unseen. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go. So they paid for school. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And so I visited after the fact. While I'm on my visit at Lander in Greenwood, South Carolina, which is just a little bit different from Long Island. I get a phone call, a voicemail. These voicemails, man. That's why I don't answer voicemails. If you leave me a voicemail, I'm not getting back to you. Yeah. They leave me a voicemail that I was 3 credits shy of graduating community college. So I couldn't get my diploma. And
like your associates?
Yeah. And if you don't get a diploma, you can't go back to school. Like I couldn't play baseball again. Because you have to complete the 2-year degree to go back to a 4-year school. So now so it's like, this is the first week of August, and I'm like, that's it. What do I do? Like, I'm literally going to have to take a semester off, and then they're not going to accept my baseball money anymore because I'm halfway through the year. Right. So I'm like, am I going to be like a 6-year college? Even though I came into school with almost a full year worth of AP credits, I'm going to take 6 years to graduate because of baseball. So definitely lost my taste for baseball at that point because it kind of was dictating my life. But I still loved it for the most part. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, well, what can we do? Like, we can put you in this class. So I had a 4.0 coming out. It was a community college. I was okay. I was good enough in school. So they were like, we can put you in this last research class, but there's a 10-page paper you have to write, and you have a week to do it. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. But like we talked to the professor, he's okay with it. He understands the situation, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, like I appreciate that, I guess. I had to pay for the credit, so $1,600 just for this class to graduate, even though they messed up. Do the 10-page paper, he gives me a C. He ruins my 4.0 GPA and gives me a C. And I'm like, what did you expect? And so that was like the end of it. I'm like, thank God it's behind me. And then
like it didn't matter.
At that point I was like, I just wanted to go to school.
How much do you care about your GPA now?
Not at all. I mean, literally hasn't come up at all, right? So like I graduated, landed with a 4.0, like I got all A's there. And it doesn't matter. Like I said, like I graduated and went right to working as a manager at Walgreens. Like I don't think it dictates as much of your life as people like really think it does.
Yeah. Let's talk, Chris, let's get into your college experience, because you and I both played golf at Queens, and then you were going to be a lawyer, but here you are working at Flex. There was a couple transitions there. Talk us through it.
Yeah, so I went to school, and I actually went to school originally for kinesiology. So I was like, I don't know what I wanted to do. I knew that I liked working out, and kinesiology kind of aligned with that. So I started off by going for kinesiology, and then like, I think by the second semester of freshman year, I decided that I didn't really see like a future in kinesiology, and I didn't know like what that future would be if I did pursue it. So I switched to business and majored in business, and then found out through that I enjoyed finance the most within the business world. So I then like specialized in finance basically. And so I did that for the 4 years, and like you said,
I didn't know that. You're even into accounting for Flex. I don't know. You count.
Yeah.
I didn't really know that.
Chris is smart.
Yeah. So I like Freddie said, we were roommates, and that was great and really fun. And then somewhere along the line, I think like halfway into my junior year, I decided I wanted to start making YouTube videos.
Yeah.
And one day I just pulled out a GoPro and set it up and started filming stuff. And at the time I was really into working out, so I was like, look, there's nothing really else that I do interesting.
I didn't realize that was you started with a GoPro?
Yeah.
I didn't.
Same one.
Yeah, I didn't realize you started when you were still a junior. I thought it was like the summer after your junior year you got the
No, so it was junior year, like the day before school ended. I got the GoPro out and I was like, you know what, let's try it. So I always loved watching YouTube, and I always liked seeing people like the vlog type videos where it's just like someone's life. And I was like, you know what, I could probably do that too. Like I don't see why I couldn't. So I whipped out my GoPro and started filming myself working out and like cooking food and just like doing weird stuff. Yeah. And the first video I made was probably like really bad. I should go back and watch it and just see how like far I've come. But
I don't even know what it was.
It was just like my first vlog.
Yeah.
And so I made that, and then ever since then I just fell in love with like making videos, getting creative, and trying new things, filming and editing and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's now my everyday job.
Nice. So a little backstory on that. I had started working as a coach at CrossFit South End with a gentleman named Stuart, and Chris started coming to the gym as well, and we were both kind of on the coaching side of things. I was coaching full time as a job. This was right after I got out of school, and Chris was kind of shadowing and assistant coaching some. He started doing some film editing stuff, and Stu had started a consultation business and needed to produce some content, and Chris kind of took that and run with it. And then I think Stu bought Chris Final Cut Pro, which like took his video editing game to the next step, and like Chris learned how to edit on something other than just iMovie. And eventually Joe joined the gym also. Yeah. And I don't know what brought you to Charlotte.
I was living in Columbia, South Carolina, and I moved down for the weather.
Yeah.
I just like it being sunny all the time. And I knew I wasn't going to stay in Columbia forever. It was just not a place where you can really network, and I just wanted to meet new people and kind of do different things. And I just heard so many good things about Charlotte. I always worked remote, so I was never really locked into a single location. I just needed my laptop. So I was like, cool, I'm going to try Charlotte out because everyone says really cool things, because there's no way it could be as good as everyone says it is. And then I came up there like 2 weeks after I got here. I was like, yep, I love it. Like, I'll probably stay here for as long as I can see. Like, I'll always have a place here. I really love it here.
And when were you working at Walgreens, and why?
So when I graduated, I tend to do things by the seat of my pants. So I moved back home right after I graduated, which is on Long Island, and I was probably at home for 2 weeks when I realized this isn't gonna work. I can't live with my parents. I'm too independent. I've been living on my own for like 3 years. So I was looking for some jobs up there, but I wasn't aggressively looking. Yeah. And then when none of these jobs were working out, it was probably about 2 months into summer, I was like, hey, I'm gonna go on vacation and visit one of my friends that played on the baseball team in Greenwood, at Lander. And it was over the summer, so I just went and stayed with him for a week because that was all I could afford. I didn't have a job. And we stayed there, and that weekend I met a girl, and she was really nice. And she asked me if I would, she's like, was I leaving? And I was like, oh, my ticket's back tomorrow, is that Sunday? And she's like, oh, because I have a wedding next Friday. I think it'd be really great, like, if you would want to come with me. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll do that. It sounds better than living with my parents. So I called up my parents and I said, hey, I got invited to a wedding next week, so I'm going to cancel my return flight home. They're like, oh, when are you going to rebook it for? And I was like, I don't know yet. And I just stayed. So I lived out of a suitcase for another week and went to the wedding with her, and we ended up really hitting it off and dating. So I called my dad the day after the wedding, and I was like, yeah, I'm not coming home, so I'm going to just live down here now. I'll come back and get my stuff. And I stayed there for probably another month, and then I flew home, packed all my stuff in a car, and moved down to Greenwood.
Nice.
Job opportunities weren't flourishing at the time in Greenwood, so I was having some trouble finding a job, and I actually worked, so I got a job at Walgreens to kind of pay the bills, so to speak. And it was fun. It was an assistant manager position, which was really funny because I think when you get out of college, you have this identity issue. Because in college, you're a person, right? Like, you're like the baseball player, or, you know, like the guy with allergies. Like, people just know who you are, and you don't have to constantly like tell people like, I'm Joe and this is who I am. Right. And when I left that and I worked at Walgreens, I was hands down the youngest manager there. I mean, most of the managers there were in their 40s and 50s. Most of the employees were older than I was. I was only 23, maybe. But to them, I was this old bald white dude that would come into, you know, like, they just knew me as this guy. They all thought I was in my 30s, and I was like, I'm not gonna, it's not a topic of conversation, so we just go on with live. So I think it was like a very interesting experience. You get like a lot of directly customer facing opportunities, which I think is super important for growth. But while I was doing that, I wanted to make some money on the side, so I got a job as a craft beer bartender. And this guy was just installing lines, and this is actually what kind of started my career in development. I was realizing that Walgreens wasn't going to cut it. They made me work overnight shifts. And I was like, no, like, this is where I draw the line, because I feel like I'm regressing as a person. So I quit the job. I was working as a craft bartender, and so it was Mill House in Greenwood, South Carolina. Super cool place. And the owner of it was telling me how the difficulty he was having keeping up with the tap system. He's like, because we print these menus at the beginning of the month. He goes, but the amount that we switch out kegs, it's out of date, like, almost by the end of the day. So someone comes in and they go, I want this beer. It's like, sorry, that's out. And it's just a terrible customer experience. So I was like, I could probably develop something to make, you know, I didn't have any development skills. I'd taken classes 3 years ago, but I was like, I didn't know what I was doing. So he's like, yeah, could you try that? I'm like, yeah, sure. So I spent the month of December, almost an entire month, teaching myself VBA to like use an Access database to build just a basic screen of macros and functions to kind of run this guy's bar. And it ended up being even more complex than we originally thought. Like, he could go in, basically the bartenders tap the button when the keg was kicked, and it would pre-print the new menu with the new thing, and you'd lay it out on the tables. So it was like almost real time before it's like on your phone. But yeah, so it was like almost a real-time bar, and the bartender could do it, so he didn't have to do it anymore. So I remember, because I distinctly remember, like, I went in with like a suit on, right? Like, I'm the bartender, I went with the suit, I sat down next to the guy, and I'm like, this is what I'm thinking. He's like, how much is it gonna cost? And like, it came out to like $150, right? For like a month of my time. But it was my first opportunity to sit down with someone, hear out what they needed, and try to build a solution, and I got addicted. So I'm like, I could build things that actually help other people run their businesses. And so I was addicted after that. I knew I wanted to be in development. So he let me still work there while I was looking for a new job, and I started interviewing in Columbia for tech jobs.
Nice.
That's kind of what launched the career.
Yeah. And so, like, Flexx is the first business you started? Or you started the Southern Amateur Grid League, yeah. So you were in the whole like functional fitness, competitive fitness world for a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, so that was when I moved to Columbia, I started working for special education software, and I worked there for like 2.5 years, and that's when I started CrossFit. And I was into CrossFit, but I was never good at it because I hate like endurance sports, are just not my thing. I was more of like an explosive, like trying to do fun things all the time, and I get tired really easy. So when Grid came out, I was like, oh man, this looks sweet. I want to play.
Right.
And like, I definitely want to try this thing out, but where are they going to get these athletes from? Like, how do I get recruited to play? Like right now they're just taking some of the top CrossFitters. So it's like, how am I going to get into it? So that kind of spiraled into me talking to a buddy that I just met about doing it, playing Grid, and then we created a league around it instead of trying to play it, and it slowly grew bigger than I think either of us expected. And we threw our first Invitational that December, so we had the idea in July, I think. And in that amount of time, got sponsors, got a rig, got a place, got an event, ran my first event, started a business, aggregated teams, built an entire website platform for people to pay and all that kind of stuff. And our first, I think it was successful. We had like 500 people come, 12 different states, 3 different countries. Like, so a bunch of people came to it. I'm like, then you get addicted to the business side of things. Right. Like, this is a lot of fun. So I totally forgot about playing it. And I remember sitting down with him, and at the time, like, I was like, what's my 3 to 5 year goal here? Like, well, I know this is not what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, but like, what do I want out of this? I was like, I want to get hired by the pros. I want to work at the pro level. And they actually came to that event, and I was hired like 2 months later. So it made it really tough to continue that, because I was like, oh, well, now I have this other job that I've wanted. Right. But we did run through the first season and everything. But, there's a lot of things that you kind of learn that first go around.
Is Grid still a thing? I've kind of stopped following it.
Yeah, so it was for an extended period of time. And then, like the networks and things, like they just keep bucking and people want to do different things. And the leadership was constantly changing over the first few years of Grid. There were a lot of different crises normally around finances and stuff. So I think putting out the best product wasn't always the easiest thing to do. Yeah. Even though we knew the right way that we wanted to do it, it was just like, sometimes those just don't align. Yeah. So,
for those that don't know, Grid is this like team competitive fitness where there were different events, and it's similar to CrossFit. A lot of the moves look similar, but in Grid, you needed to have one person who's really good at one thing and another person who's really good at another thing. Whereas CrossFit, you kind of have to be good at everything. Grid opened it up to like people who are just strong, or like people who just move fast, or people that were just like small guys that could climb up a rope in 2 seconds. So it was it's super fast paced, really fun to watch if you know what's going on. To the layman, it's probably like, what the hell is going on?
I think, and that's one of the biggest things. That's like one of the cornerstones of the sport, was trying to make it a little bit more digestible for the average person. And I think that's where we ran into a lot of like divergence with people in the CrossFit community, because it's like, this isn't CrossFit. It's like, well, it's not supposed to be, right? It was like, this was a sport that was born out of the ideas and some of the concepts, but ultimately it was its own beast, right? It was racing, it was co-ed teams. It was where like a female and a male can go out and do the same exercise at the same time, but be on competitive teams. Like I don't know any other professional sports where a guy and a girl could go out, be against each other on the same floor during the same race.
So you weren't in the creation process of Grid, but you started SAGL. What did you do differently than Grid, and what would you have gone back and done differently for Grid if you were in that side of things?
Well, I think that when Grid started out, I think that there was maybe a little bit of tunnel vision around the people that were kind of heading it, all coming from a background of CrossFit. And I think that's what. So the guy that I started with, Carl, he actually played professional football in Canada, and I was a baseball player in college. We brought more athletes for athletes concept to it, and I think that we just knew the things that people were motivated by. And I think that when you look at something in a too much of a business sense, you lose why people are actually doing it. So the difference was Grid was trying to be a professional sport, maybe too fast, to where it's it needed some traction, some organic traction, before we could start paying people full-time salaries to become Grid players. But it was kind of pitched like that, so it seemed like a bait and switch, but it really wasn't. It was no, we're going to pay you pretty well, but the season's only 8 games long. It's not you're not playing 152 games. And I mean, even baseball 20 years ago, these people had jobs in the off season. Like they weren't making the money that they are today. Yeah. So I think there was like this kind of skewed vision of that. So when we did it, the athletes paid to play in the SAGL, but they did it for the right reasons because they're like, we want to play and have fun and play the game with each other. We want a shirt with our name on the back.
Right.
We want a team with a logo and a website and like to share with our friends the experience, to be able to invite my mom and like have her watch, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I knew a couple of people that were on the Bluffton Bruisers, right?
Yeah, well, I can say it now. It's my favorite team in the league. Like, they were the best. They were the best. PJ and them were really cool guys. It's my PR shirt. Every time I wear my Bluffton Bruisers shirt, it's my best.
I knew Macy and Cody. I don't know anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Macy and Cody, yeah. They were cool. Cody's done at Wadapalooza right now.
Oh, really?
That's this weekend, right? They won Team RX last year, so he's got to do Elite this year.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah. That's growing huge.
Yeah. Now, this is open to both of you guys. Talk to me a little bit about what you guys do at Flexx now. What is Flexx? What is Flexx?
So, Flexx was born out of like the concept that there's things that small business owners go through on a daily basis that get overlooked by larger systems and larger platforms, because most people look at a platform and say, how do we scale this, right? Because the business model for most software as a service platforms have to scale to different businesses or scale to one business in every facet of that business. So it's either a viral growth model or expanded over industries. Yeah. Problem is you miss a lot of small business owners who, you probably know this just as well as anybody, it's like you have to wear a ton of hats and you're constantly switching gears. So the idea of having to tackle something as big as your digital presence can be daunting, and if it's not, it's probably because you don't know enough about it, right? Like there's this education gap. So what I saw was just like kind of a void in the market, and there's some people trying to do something similar, but the kind of this void in the market of not reusing some other application to make it better for fitness or make it better for specific gyms or whatnot. To have their website integrate with all of the marketing tools that are out there now. I mean, Facebook advertising, all these things, like all these keywords that people throw around, they're all great, but they all require some level of understanding to get effective use out of them. Right. Anybody can run a Facebook ad, not everyone can run an effective one. And I think the biggest loss around here is the data. So I love the idea of creative, which is why Chris is on, right? Like I love the idea of the creative being a big part of marketing for gyms. But you have to use some analytics or else you're kind of just shooting in the dark. So what I would notice with a lot of these gyms is that they would put up a website, they put up a Facebook page, and they have these different accounts because they know that they're supposed to, but it's hard to go into depth on like why and what should I use and how do I leverage it in my business. So I think I got into it because I love the allure of like working with a whole bunch of gyms, but I think now that I'm finding 6-7 months into it, I enjoy working with small business owners who like have stuff to tackle that's too big for them. That they're like, I need some help here. Yeah. I need this to work seamlessly. I don't want to think about it. I want to understand just enough, empower me to use something that I can do. And I feel like a lot of gym owners have that already built in. Like that's how they train people, right? Like a personal trainer looks at you and they say, these are the things you need to improve on. Let me help you get there. Right. And that's kind of what I'm just trying to do with their digital presence. That's all.
And that's from website design to social media presence,
marketing, okay. Media, whatever it is. And I mean, and for media, I think we're a little bit less artsy and a little bit more like shooting with intent is how I like to look at it. Like we look at something like we're going to do a photography shoot. We may not get the same skilled shots as like somebody that does this for a living, but we know that this is going to live above the contact form of this page of your website because that's what we're shooting for. We know that already exists. So I just I have met enough gym owners and been around enough gym owners to see their pain points, and like nothing's more painful than watching them have 17 Chrome tabs open with 17 different apps that do 17 different things, and like they can't aggregate the data across it. You know what I mean? I want to install this Facebook pixel. Okay, well now I have to contact a developer and then I have to learn how to run advertising, which by the way, Facebook's pixel platform, I mean, it changes daily. Yeah. They're putting out, if you stay off for a month, it's like a completely new platform. So to stay up to date, it's just a lot, and I just try to kind of hone that down.
So Chris, what are you doing with Flexx? Where do you fit in?
Well, I was going to say a little bit off of what Joe was saying. For me, Flexx is cool because all this stuff that we offer, you know, like half the gym owners in the US probably don't even know what a Facebook pixel is, right? So, okay, so there you go. And so our ability to kind of help the fitness industry or whatever industry that we want to go after, just help them grow and get better and become more advanced, and kind of, the opportunity to give that to other people is really cool to me, because, I don't know if for those of you that are watching, CrossFit, it's kind of like lagging behind every other industry, and as far as like technology and all that stuff. So if you go on a CrossFit gym's website, it might not look as professional or as good as, a really like a, I don't know.
Gold's Gym or something?
Yeah, like a Gold's Gym or something like with a lot more money and, investors behind it. So I think it's kind of cool for us to be able to offer, a more level of sophistication to something that has always been kind of not so sophisticated.
And I think he brings up a good point. I mean, one of the biggest parts of like this business realm that I find super is like you don't know what you don't know. That's the most daunting task to take on in business, is when you sit there and you're like, oh shit, these guys are talking about the Facebook pixel. I don't even know it. Should I be using it? And you can't know about that because you're focused on coffee, right? Like at the end of your day, when you're done doing the things that you have to do as a business owner, you want to broaden your knowledge of coffee and how to deliver the best to your customers.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to think about what the Facebook pixel is or what the next Facebook pixel will be. And that's what I try to offer.
Well, like my understanding of Facebook advertising, and this is super basic, is like you put out a Facebook post and then a day later, Facebook sends you a little notification that says, hey, this post is doing great. Add $2 to reach 1,300 more people. And then, so there's the really basic, like just boost
Right.
it. And then you can create like independent sponsored things. And then you can create, like if you go back into the back end of it, you can go to Power Editor. And then I don't know what Pixel is. But like all I knew is that there was like things you could boost and then things you can create, like a sponsored, like an independent sponsored post. And then there's the Power Editor where you like run campaigns with different goals and different like metrics and whatever.
And so I think that what you just accomplished right there is what a lot of people struggle with when they first start out trying to do this type of advertising, which is starting from what you know and trying to grow that versus figuring out what your goal is and then reverse engineering the process. So boosting a post is to get organic reach. Like, okay, I'm going to pay for this organic reach, so it's not really organic, you're paying for it, but it's just to get brand awareness out there, because you're not tracking the conversions on a boosted post, you're just getting more likes and engagement. So it's to get your name out there more. Now, once you get into like more of the advertising realm, it's about what you're trying to target. And you're like, well, how do I target perfectly? Well, I don't know, what's your specific business? Because it's going to be very different. I can sit here and tell you how Flex would use it versus how your coffee shop would use it. It would be completely different, even though it's the same platform. And that's the kind of stuff where it's like you start talking and people's eyes glaze over. And they're like, I don't care, man, can you do it? And I'm like, yeah, I can. And that's why, so I start every single, any new client that comes on, I start with an hour consultation. And that consultation has nothing to do with my offering. In fact, I've had just as many consultations where I actually tell people to use other things than to use mine. Because like, we're not cheap. We don't want to be cheap. That's not what we want to be affordable, but still understand that there's like, if you can't leverage it, what's the point of buying a $3,500 MacBook unless you know how to leverage the technology in that MacBook, right? If you can get away with an iPad, buy an iPad, it's super cheap. Buy any small computer, buy a Chromebook for $250. It does 80% of the same things. So it's like knowing what your goal is the most important part. So I take that consultation, and the entire consultation is about their business. I just want to get to know them and what they're trying to do. And then I can suggest different things based on what they're saying. So they come to me and they'll say something like, our biggest problem is that we have people that are interested. We have 5,000 followers. We have 10,000. Like, we're pretty good in where we're at, but we don't know how to take them and get new people from those people, right? Because these are all the people that already follow our stuff. Like, they're already engaging. But what does that... And that's what, well, let's talk about how to re-engage an audience. Let's talk about retargeting people. Let's make lookalike audiences. And that's where it's like, I try to think for them and then make my best educated guess. If someone comes to me and says, I'm looking for a website that does all this stuff and I don't have to think about it, and I'm like, okay, that's what we do. That's great. This is how we can leverage the platform to your advantage. This is how you can do it without the platform. We're not reinventing the wheel, we're making it easier. That's how, I'm an optimizer. That's what I enjoy doing.
Now, was Facebook around when you were in college?
Yeah.
Not to.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. So, when I was Facebook, I guess really.
When did you graduate?
So I graduated high school in 2006.
Okay, so 06. So yeah, it was.
So Facebook really hit the scene in like 05-ish and the beginning of 06. And then you needed a .edu
Right.
to sign up. Like you could not sign up with an email address not ending in .edu. And I was pumped because everyone was talking about like, we can't wait to get to college. Like most of us were looking forward to going to college just to get our email address so we can get on Facebook.
Yeah.
Then in 2006, they opened up the damn platform. And they're like, doesn't matter. And they let high schoolers in. And I remember I would decline every one of the because I was like, no, I waited a year and a half, you will too. Like I'm not, all these friends that I had in high school, they're like, hey, Joe, like add me. Like, no, I'm not, no, decline all of your friendships. If you don't have a .edu, you can wait like the rest of us do. So yeah, I mean, Facebook was around, although it's evolved quite a bit since then. Since then, there wasn't even a newsfeed then.
Right, it was just like, it was a wall.
It was like, oh, I know Chris. Cool, I like him.
Wall.
You know,
like, draw
let's see who else
graffiti
Chris
on the
knows.
wall.
Like click
I
somebody
don't think
else.
I even. Yeah,
Yeah, there wasn't a feed.
I wish I had like screenshots of like back in the day. because it
So
was
Wayback Machine, you ever use it?
I don't.
My favorite website. So waybackmachine.com.
Wayback Machine.
You want to talk about binging? If you have nothing to do this weekend, get on it.
That's not this weekend.
It's one of those things where you can take a website and put it in, and it'll show you screenshots of it from like going because the website's cached,
Archived, right?
So you can
Yeah.
like literally go back to archives of like what Facebook looked like in 2004, and like look at. You can look at it when it was the Facebook.com.
Right.
And
Does
all
that
like the
remember-
iterations of it.
So like when I first got my Facebook, the cool thing back then was all these like third-party apps that you could have on your walls. There was like graffiti and you could like play little games, but it was like nested on your Facebook wall. But like it was only native to your wall, so like you could choose what apps you had on your wall. So like I would always go to my buddy's page because he had this really fun game that I was like, oh damn, like I'm gonna set a new high score on this,
Right.
Or like I'm gonna draw some like crazy graffiti thing on my friend Pete's wall, and like.
I mean, birthday was basically an overglorified way to say happy birthday to all your friends. That was like the
Right.
initial feature. Like I
And
just
that's-
knew when my friends' birthdays were now.
Well, and like for a while, my parents like didn't allow me to have a Facebook, and so like I'd get to school and everybody would be like, "Hey, happy birthday to so and so," and I was like, "How do you guys keep up with all this crap?" Like,
Right.
well, and then I got a Facebook and I realized it says if you're born on May 30th, like, oh, well, that's how everybody knows.
Right.
It's like I feel like an idiot now.
Oh man. But AIM was still big back then too, right? Like that's what I miss.
What's A?
Oh
AIM-
my gosh.
Yeah. First of all, like, can we cut? Get it out of here. Somebody take it. So
AIM died. Didn't
It's
AIM
dead.
just die just like 2
literally
weeks
like
ago?
yeah, like 2 months ago. Yeah, it's like dead. Over.
AOL
Instant Messenger.
You could have like you could curate your friends list.
It was
and then
text
you could-
messages, not on your phone.
Right.
On the computer.
Yep, on the
Yeah.
computer. But it was beautiful because you don't carry your computer around your pocket. So like people can contact, but when you got online, so like when you were away, you put up an away message.
Yeah,
Like,
everybody
I'm away
was
for the
like-
next 30, like BRB, right?
You had to have like a
BRB.
really clever away message.
Yeah, and like you would know, like oh man, Freddie's online. What's going on, man? And then
Right.
like his away message, I'm like, really, bro? Like I know you just got my message. You were online. It was so much cooler of a way interacting. You sit there, you have all the different screens because it wasn't in one screen.
No, you had to have
So you
a
have
bunch
like
of
all
text
these
bubbles.
different screens, and you're like pressing tab, jumping from the different. Oh man, I miss AIM.
Yeah.
I loved it.
And you could like
Life was so much simpler back then.
yeah. I remember when I figured out you could separate your friends into different lists. So I like had my parents on one list, and I had always like offline. So I like they were like, "What are you doing down there?" I was like, "Nothing." Yeah. Oh man.
Oh, that's really
Hey,
funny.
dude,
That was so great. And what was the tone?
you probably don't even know what Snake is.
So the tone, here's are great. Like, so I was just talking about this with somebody yesterday, how spoiled everybody is with music now.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I used to have to like burn CDs. Like, you go on BearShare, you go on LimeWire.
Kazaa.
You Kazaa. Like, whatever it was. And you go to
That
the
was
download
the-
screen, and there's 72 download buttons because half of them are spam that you're going to click on
Right.
to get a virus. Because you got viruses once a week. If you were getting less than one virus a week, you weren't doing it right. You weren't downloading enough music. So you go there and you download these songs illegally, right? And you're like, you know it's wrong, and then there's lawsuits coming out, and you're like, yeah, but they won't catch me. I'm just a guy, right?
Right, like,
And
I've
you-
got 200 songs,
Yes,
like-
no, they don't care about me. I'm just a guy. And what would happen is while you're downloading the song, because of the way that the internet, like because of their like the lack of channel difference of the audio, as you're downloading the song, if you got a message, I still have songs that like have the tones of AIM in them, like doo-doo-doo. And you're like, that's not part of the song. It's because it would like cross, like as I was downloading, I was getting AIM messages, so you have to like go away while you're using the download. Oh, it's so great.
Yeah.
Oh,
you
man.
guys have it easy because all you do is open Spotify and all your music's like,
oh man, there's a comedian that's the whole thing on like music now. Is like, I want all of the songs in the world in a small device that I put in my pocket, and I want to be able to listen to them whenever I want. And they're like, that seems pretty crazy, but we might be able to do it. Like, how much would you pay for it? Nothing. I want to pay nothing for it. And like, you know what I mean? And back in the day, like that was a really like you
right. And like
you
the biggest iPod was like 16 gigs, and so like if you had more than 16 gigs of music, you had to like, God, what playlist do I want to leave out? Like, where am I going? Like, I'm not going to be able to sync my iPod for the next week. Like, what? Yeah, I'm going to be stuck in.
Yeah, I got a playlist called On My iPod because like those were the songs that I was currently listening to, and I just kind of traded them out. Oh man, life was so much fun back then. It's because you weren't so distracted by everything. Like now, there's the fact that if you wanted to get a hold of me, right, and you called me and I didn't answer, which happens often because I don't answer phone calls, like you could then text me. You're gonna hit me up over Slack. You're gonna post a comment in Trello. You're gonna hit my Facebook Messenger. You're gonna hit me in the Instagram DMs. Like Snapchat. There's so many ways to get a hold of somebody that you like. It's not as personal anymore. It's just like, I don't know. I don't want to talk to anybody except if I want to talk to them right now. You know what I mean? Here he goes. Hopefully he's got more. Does he get more coffee?
I don't know what's going on.
Did you remember to press record?
I'm pretty sure I did, but it doesn't look like anything recorded.
Oh my goodness.
The GoPro recorded. I'm really upset right now.
All right, retry.
That's classic. This is a classic maneuver.
Right.
See? This is why you need to hire media people.
Yeah.
All right, hang on a sec.
Let's go ahead, retry.
Oh, that's so funny.
Talking about our company. You could ask us that question again. By Letty.
I was thinking that like the halfway through, I was like, I should have flipped the screen out so I know when it cuts off.
I love these chairs because they make me look the same size as Chris. That's for sure. Don't you forget it.
Let's get back to Flex though, because like right now you create a website for businesses.
That's what this guy does.
You create content, so video stuff, animations, what have you. Right now it's you guys. How is that scalable?
So, obviously when you're just starting out, product market fit is the hardest part of starting any kind of tech company, which is you have an idea of what you think the product is going to do and how it's going to work in the world, and then you get out there and you're like, holy shit, this is nothing even close to what I thought. So they usually talk about how companies start out, and it's like it's a sprint to figure out where your product actually fits in the market. Because you can take a more viral approach, try to get a bunch of people on the platform. You can say Flexx is free for the first month. Get a bunch of people out there getting their websites on, because after that there's a recurring charge of this amount of money. That has its own headaches and good, right? Like if you find out you get a free website that's actually pretty decent, you might sign up knowing that it's only $15 a month after that, or $20 a month. Or you take a different model where you say we're going to charge a very high price point and just try to target specific types of customers. And it's also what they're using your product for. A lot of people, I think, when they go to find a product, initially they go to save time. Some people go to save money. Some people go because they want work taken off their plate. And those are three very distinct markets, even within a sub-industry, right? Like, so we've targeted fitness. I've been in fitness for a long time, so it's like, it just makes sense. And I understand the market pretty well. So to kind of turn around and be like, okay, we're going to be this today and that's it. We're not doing it. It's like, I don't want to be that inflexible. I think that that's what having a smaller company allows you to do, is to be flexible and kind of move and pivot in a way that makes the most sense for the customer at the end of the day. Even 6 months later, I started this to think that people wanted more control over their websites, and that's not what they want. People want control over what their website can function as, and making sure that it's up to date without them having to think about it. They don't want to become web designers. And the truth is that 60 to 70% of the things that you put on websites are media, right? Like good photography and videography make a website what it is. Like I could show you, and now Flex's website's funny, right? Because there's no images on it. 0 images, 0 video. That'll change. But right now there's 0, right? So of course, Freddie, the first question I get is like, oh, I thought you said it's all about images. It's like, no, it's all about images for you.
Right.
It's not necessarily for me. And that's what I mean about like finding out what the small business owner really needs and wants. So I think we're still trying to find our product market fit. I think, to find out what that is. But today, it's already evolved so much from what it started out as. The features and functionalities are just so much more broad and encompassing, and just like I spend so many hours trying to make it so easy for someone to use.
Right.
Like every day, like at least once a week, he'll come in and tell me a new feature that he's added to the platform. So like, weekly there's new things being added that he realizes that a gym owner or someone mentioned to him, hey, I would love for the platform to be able to do this, and then he goes and makes it. So like, I think our company's kind of, whatever our customers want, we try to kind of align with that.
And this is, that kind of parallels something I think is cool about Flex, is that like, I interact with Chris on almost a daily basis, and Chris literally learns something new every day. Or like, your first assignment for Chris is like, hey, learn how to use this camera. Hey, learn how to use this program. And that's like, I don't know, I just like appreciate that, like, that's part of what you're trying to do, is also build up your own business and your own employees on top of like building in functionality for your clients.
So I've talked to you about this extensively. Like, I have a soft spot for people that are self-taught.
Yeah.
I think that there's a certain, not even just a mindset, but there's a quality of a person that inspires them to teach themselves something. And the inspiration comes from different places. Some people do it because like they hate what they're doing. Their back's up against the wall and they want to learn something new. Other people do it because they're just like, I feel like I want to do this and I want to try this out. Yeah. And that's kind of how it was for me in development. Like, there was no reason for me to be in development. I could have been a trainer. I think I would have made a decent trainer, right? Like I think I could do this kind of thing. I think I could have continued on and done baseball camps, which was like, I got a lot of offers to go do because I was like a very good teacher. And they're like, we'll teach people how to catch. Right. But there was something in me that was like, but I could build solutions that scale. Like I could build a solution that I give to somebody that I don't even know. By the way, that bar application, which was so big, he used it for 4.5 years because it served him well.
And then wasn't there an app?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's a rough spot for me. So I then went on to V2 of that. So when I was working for we'll come back to this, I promise, about the employees thing, because it makes sense. When I was building that app, I was like, now with developers all the time. Right. So I'm like, oh man, I know I can make this even better. I'm going to take this online. Now this is back in 2012, 2011. This is before they had iPads on tables, bars, okay? So I went in, I was like, I know how to make this better. This is what we're going to do. You're gonna be able to load Same bar. I was like, you're gonna be able to load in your inventory list all online, okay? The bartender is gonna be able to see what all the beers are out there. The person is gonna come in and pick up an iPad or actually go to the app on their phone. Like once they go in, I had like QR codes were just coming out, like it was big time then. Yeah. So we printed, what are they called, coasters, with a beer, because craft beer was on the rise then. This was like before craft beer made its way into Chili's and stuff. Like it was still like, it was super cool. It was like when CrossFit first started, like it was super cool
if you knew
before it got commercialized, right? So we had these placements that were made for like beer distributors where it's like you could scan it, it would bring it up on your phone, and then you could order it. And it goes to the bar, and then the bartender had a queue, and he could see when the beers were coming in. It actually also integrated with a piece of technology on the keg itself to let you know how full the keg was, so that you could never order a beer that wasn't available. So like it would literally show up on the board like, this beer's about to be kicked. So that automatically actually puts in your customer's mind like, wow, if I want my beer, I better order it now. So it actually intrigued customers to order more beer faster. Not necessarily get drunk, but they were like, I want this beer before the keg gets kicked.
Right.
I had this whole thing. And then I actually internalized. Now I was 23 or 24 at the time. And I think that this was like a big learning point for me where I was like, I doubted myself. I'm like, this is gonna grow somewhere where I can't take it. I don't know how to do this integration with the point of sale to make sure they get their money, and then he's gonna get upset with me. I'm a one-man show, I taught myself. You doubt yourself. This is all part of the growing process. I can look at it now and be like, yeah, let me tell you what I should have done, right? But in that moment, I was like, this is gonna quickly outgrow me. And I got nervous, and I never pulled the trigger on it. And he would message me like once a month, like, hey, did you? So I got it to the point where you could load in your stuff, you bring up an iPad, and it would actually create like taps. And if you click the tap, it would tell you about the beer. And if you drag the mug, you would drag the glass underneath it, and it would start to fill up, and it was like your order's being processed. And it would send it to a queue of the bartender. And it was all done, and I never released it. And I just kind of sat because I was too nervous about like, but what if it fails? Like, what if this guy loses money? Like, I couldn't take on that ownership, which is why I think that, and this is to get to your profound point, right? It's like
that exists now, though, right?
100%. So 2 years later, I mean, that's when Untapped and all of these different things came out because that was the marketplace. For me, it was like, this is a win-win-win, which happens once in a lifetime, in my opinion. Like when you really get these situations where he wins because all these people are learning about beers, the more they learn, the more they want to order the beer, right? The consumer wins because they're becoming more knowledgeable and able to interact with the bartender. It's a way better experience. But then I was even looking at from the data aggregation that you can get from where your beer is doing well. Like, do you know that your beer is the most popular thing? Because the biggest thing I found out was when they were starting up, which is probably similar to coffee, you want to know your distribution channels. Like, would my beer do just as well in Nashville as it would in Raleigh, as it would in California?
Well, I'm guessing that for the business too, like, oh, you know, this beer's been ordered so many, it'll automatically say like, hey, you need to order 6 more
inventory.
kegs.
And that was built in too. So it was all there. And the structure of it was. And I never pulled the trigger, and it was like, but I think that you realize, I think there's a lot of people that admire the young people. I'm like, oh yeah, well, if you don't have your idea by 22, right? If you're not a millionaire with the best, I'm not gonna start a business at 30. I'm not gonna start at 40. I'm not gonna start, like, why? If I would have started a business at 23, I wouldn't have succeeded. And maybe I would have learned a lot, but I just learned it at my own pace. And it took me a little bit longer to start a company that I think can actually make the impact that it can. Yeah. Because balancing the life of a single founder, which I'm sure you realize, like, it's a tough life. It's not as glorious as everyone makes it out to seem. It's glorious after a certain extent, could be.
Well, yeah, but nobody sees the first X period of time when you're working
tireless,
6-12
nonstop,
hours, 6-12 hours.
And they have it's a very, like, founder's depression is a very real thing where, like, you have these peaks and valleys on a daily basis with your own company, but because you don't have someone there to share with, they just go unheard. So you're experiencing these unbelievable highs, emotional highs and lows. And by the end of the day, someone goes, Freddie, how was your day? And you're like, I can't even bring you up to speed on what happened today. And it makes you internalize.
Like, sometimes it can be tough because, and I don't know how it is in the flex world, but like in customer facing positions, somebody's like, hey, how's it going? It's going great, right?
Yeah.
You can't be
you
like,
have to put a smile on.
So, yeah.
Wait, the other thing is, man, like, so in the same way that you might feel that from like a how you feel perspective, I get that from an education perspective. So if someone comes to me and doesn't really understand what I do, which makes sense. Sometimes I don't even really understand what I do. But I think that you sit down with a customer and they look at me and they say, why would I pay you for Website Monthly when I could just make one myself? And I'm like, you can. And I think it's like at first, like, and again, now this is me talking 7 months later.
Right.
Month into it, I'm like, what do you mean? You don't see how this is so much better than what you're trying to do? Like, because you want them to get it, but they don't. And you can't knock them for that, right? Everyone's at a different spot on the spectrum of what they understand and what they don't. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, it's not like my product's perfect for everybody, but I think it could be great for some people. And I've just been more of the working mentality of like, well, I'll show you.
Yeah.
I'll prove it. And that was the same thing that happened with Stu. Like when Stu came to me and wanted to talk about these things, I was like, I can't show you what I just did for some other gym owner or what I just did for some other business, like, but I know I can do this for you and let me show you how. Yeah. I just try to prove it as best I can. Yeah. But let's get back to your thing about bringing people on and kind of making it a learning experience.
Oh, yeah.
Because ultimately, Flexx is a product. It definitely is a company, definitely has the force of a company, it has the services that a company can afford. But my ultimate vision was for the company that exists, like to fund Flexx, so to speak, which is Ringer, which is like the parent company. And Ringer was kind of created on this essence of like, I again love the idea of being self-taught because it makes people like resourceful and they're not willing to like say hear no and just kind of run with things. Yeah. And what I wanted it to be was almost like this opportunity where you get out of college and you have no experience, or you're self-taught and no one's going to hire you for anything other than like your base level employees. But you still have so much to learn because you're self-taught, you don't know what you don't know. So It's like you don't know that a website should be this and that until you make it and break it a bunch of times. So what I wanted it to be was something where people can come and get experience in the fields that they're interested in while actually giving stuff towards a product. So Chris is learning more about, like I made him switch programs,
right? Like
Final Cut Pro to Adobe Premiere, and he bucked. He didn't like that. He's like, ah. And every time I catch him, I'd be like, "What are you doing?" I said Premiere Pro. Like you can only use Premiere. You go home and use Final Cut all you want, but here you're using Premiere Pro. And it seems like, oh, stingy ball, you do it. Like it's not that though. It's because what happens is you get to a point where you feel like, I don't need to learn anything else. I know how to do this. It's like, but do you? Because really, as soon as you stop growing, as soon as you think you know it all, that's over. Like your career is stunted. So you're never gonna be able to grow.
Right. So I want you guys to answer this separately, and I apologize if this brings up like conflicting ideologies here, but like Chris, what are your goals 5 years from now? What do you've been doing this for a year and a half now, like film editing stuff?
Yeah, I've only been working with him though for what?
3 months?
Yeah, 3 months or so.
Okay.
That's interesting you asked that because Meredith, my girlfriend, she asked that like 2 nights ago. She was like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I was like, well, honestly, I really think that like the services and stuff that this company that I work for has to offer is going to be something that is going to, expand, keep growing, and a lot of people are going to want to use it, and that'll just obviously mean that the company grows. And I told Joe this the other day, I think it'd be really cool to be, maybe not 5 years from now, but at some point be kind of like a leader of a team that, like, we're the content creators, and if your website or your gym wants us to come make promo videos or take stock photography or whatever, we'll do it, and then we'll make it look sweet, put it on your website, and I think it would just be cool to be the guy who gets to oversee all that and be like in charge of when things go wrong and when things go right, and make sure that it all gets executed correctly.
And is that like, do you picture that being nested within Flexx, or is that like, this is Chris Webster's creative company that then, partners with Flexx to manage somebody's website, somebody's media?
Definitely within Flexx. Yeah. So, I mean, we have, obviously Stu is like kind of our first guy that we're making content for all the time.
But you got more clients, like you work with Walgreens, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So our hopes in that is that hopefully at some point we can do that for all the other, whoever wants it, whoever wants to have promotional videos made for them or have stock photography of their gym taken for them. We'll be the guys that can do it for them, and then with the platform that they're already on, everything will live on there for them seamlessly, So you don't have to go to Dropbox to get your videos and pictures. It'll be on your website already because we took them and put them on there for you, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like a one-stop shop for, any type of media or website that you want for your business.
Yeah.
And it makes it, like I said, a lot more seamless than using 15 different tabs, like we said, to manage all your online presence.
Yeah.
Which is really cool in my opinion.
I'm going to break away from this because that just kind of reminded me of something.
Sure.
We were talking about AOL earlier, and right now I kind of see this kind of reconvergence of all these different internet services. So like back in the day you had internet, and like everything, you either use AOL or you use like, what was the
Netscape?
Yeah, that one. But everything was nested in it. Like AOL, you had your email, and you had your instant messenger, and you had the weather would come up on the side, and then everything separated. So like you had your Yahoo email, and you used Internet Explorer, and then you used Skype, and then you had a separate messaging app, and then like eventually, I feel like everything's coming back together. Where like Facebook has its own messaging and it has its own video calling. And you can do live streaming and stuff. And then you can, like, if you type in your screen name at facebook.com, like, that's an email that goes to you. And it's like everything, started here, and then it had all these other platforms, and now it's all coming back together. What's happening with Flexx, and where do you see that going?
So, okay. I think I know what you're saying. So, here's how I see it. What I say is,
because the internet today is so different from the internet 5 years ago. And it's going to be extremely different from the internet 5 years from now. But you're an internet company existing today. What are you going to do?
So we're actually just about to release an article about this,
Yeah.
which is called Websites Then and Now. And it's written by someone who has years. She's a close friend. She's written a ton of things, but she's worked with a lot of companies over the years in pay-per-click advertising and bringing people on and doing kind of what we do, but at a much different scale. Like they use single customers who have very big budgets, like they're not solopreneurs, to kind of do similar things like websites and automation and all that kind of thing. And I think that this is where you kind of run into why having a smaller company and a smaller platform can really satisfy you. When I originally came up with the idea of what Flexx was going to be, it was the idea that as a gym owner, you're like, I want a website, and it's going to cost me, for a good one, let's say like between $2,000 and $5,000, which is really on the low end. People spend, I just got out of a dentist earlier this year who was like, I spent $18,000 on a single page scroll site. So like, people spend different amounts of money on different sites because it depends on what avenue. You don't know what you don't know, right? So
I had the luxury before I started the coffee shop. I was working as a CrossFit trainer, which means I had the entire day free. So I spent like literally a week and a half just on web flows, just building my own website based on the template that they gave me. So I just like click and drag, type whatever I wanted to. But it like I didn't even know any coding, and it took me a week and a half of working every day trying to build a website. Like.
And the real question is like, so what happens when you hit this scale where suddenly you're hitting 3 coffee shops? Do you have that week and a half to now learn how to update your website? No. And that's where I saw the market option. So I'm like, okay, I can walk into a gym and say, so today it's only going to cost you this amount of money, very small monthly payments over an amount of time, because Flexx as a platform is supposed to grow with you.
Right.
So wherever you're at in your business, you just pay for what you need. So if today you just need a landing page to let people know that you exist, because everyone knows that they need a website, they're just not sure what for yet, because you don't even know what your website, like what it should be yet. Let's get a landing page up, and it'll cost you only this much.
Yeah.
And then 6 months from now, when you're like, okay, I think I need to have a scheduling, and I need to have this. And it's like, okay, and we go in and build that. And that's why, like, so it's built on a proprietary platform, which allows me to have the flexibility of like turning things on and turning things off as people need them.
Now, can the business owner, this might be too nuts and bolts, but can the business owner then like log on and be like, oh, okay, I want to add this and add that? Or is it like call Joe, be like, hey, Joe, I need
So right now it's called
X,
Joe.
Y, and Z. Okay.
But
Joe
obviously,
leave a voicemail.
Right, leave a voicemail, never get a response. I think ultimately that's the growth point, right? Where you see these sites where you say, and again, I think I'm really education forward, so I don't want to set up the Facebook pixel for somebody. I'm okay with taking over the things that they only have to do once. You'll never have to log into Google Admin and set up your Google Analytics more than once, just one time. Now you have to monitor it, and that might be a service, but setting it up, it's like, don't learn how to do it. It's going to take you too long. I'll set it up for you, and then you'll never have to think about it again. Great. Because a lot of people launch a website. So I'll give you the Facebook Pixel as a good example. Facebook Pixel just kind of, let's say, it just aggregates data on who visits your website.
Yeah.
Okay? So some of the most common uses are retargeting. Yeah. So you say, everybody that comes to my website and views this coffee mug, I want to create an audience of lookalike people on Facebook that shows them this coffee mug again, so they're reminded of it, but it's in their feed, so it's more organic.
Yeah.
So you're taking people that already like this mug and showing it to them again, and getting those multiple digital touch points, right, to kind of get them to purchase. The problem is that people say, well, I know I need the pixel if I want to do Facebook advertising, so they wait until they're about to do advertising to install the pixel on their site. But that doesn't aggregate the data. Now you only have then a small subset of data to use again, when really the day you launch your website, you should have the pixel on it, because you're now aggregating data the entire time. Now you can update and make changes on, you can get pretty fancy with it, with conversions, but ultimately it's like you need that data from day one. And these are the kinds of things that business owners forget about, because you don't know what you don't know. How should you know to have done that?
I didn't.
When someone comes to me,
I bet you if we asked 10 business owners right now, 50% wouldn't even know what it is.
Yeah, and I know that because people tell me about how they're using analytics to run their business and they don't have analytics. So I'm like, well, what are you using then? Because like, I'm looking at your website and I'm seeing that you don't have Google Analytics set up. So like, how are you doing it today? And the other thing is, a lot of people just know the buzzwords. So they've heard of Google Analytics, they put the tag on their site, but that's it. And it's like, well, what pages have you updated because of your Google Analytics? Where are your biggest referrers? It's like, well, I don't know what that is. Well, yeah, I know, and that's what I can help you with. But my also thing is like, I would love to teach them how to fish. Yeah. So like, here are the basics. These are the things that you need to know so that you can make the updates as you go. So to answer your question, yes, that is the ultimate feature, right? Like, you're scrolling down, you're like, I want to run a Facebook advertisement. It shouldn't read 16 articles about the latest in Facebook advertising, like 4 YouTube videos, call Joe, email your developer, talk to your buddy who just ran one.
Right, because it changes.
You go into a platform, and the idea is, like, when we run our ads now, it's, I need an ad. Okay, what do you need? Do you need the creative, or do you have it? I have the creative, I have images. Okay. Do you have ad copy? What is ad copy? Well, here's what ad copy is, and we teach them what that is. Yeah. Do you want to write it yourself? Do you want us to write it for you? And it's just these simple steps of just stepping you through the process. And it's like, do you have, we notice that you have the pixel. Would you like us to add a tracking code to this? Yeah, I definitely want to track it. What is a tracking code? So that you can just learn it and it's all within the platform. And then it's like, okay, I would like this feature done for me. And you just click a button and it adds onto your monthly bill and we take care of it for you.
Nice.
And that's kind of the ultimate vision for that product.
Yeah. And kind of like what you were asking, like where would Flex be in 5 years, I feel like, the same way that he's having me learn something new every day, or like I'm learning something new every day because I want to, or he had me switch editing softwares just so I could have more, diverse tools in my tool belt. I think Flex, and the reason why it will work so well, because I know that he and me, will continue to try to learn new things and evolve with the market so that we stay relevant, and in 5 years we'll be just as relevant in that 5-year time as we are right now, so.
And this is how you can leverage a platform. So when you have a platform with a bunch of users, you can notice trends. Mm-hmm. I can trend spot. So the more people that get on the platform, the stronger the platform becomes, to some extent. But it's like, if I come up with an idea, it's like, oh, the newest thing is having this widget in the bottom of your website, I can develop it once and instantly install it on all the websites on the platform. And it costs you nothing. Because I don't need it to cost you anything, because it only took me an hour, 2 hours, one day, whatever it costs. That's offset by the idea that you're knowing that you're going to get the latest and greatest without having to think about it. You see what I'm saying? Like, so that's really the point. So if tomorrow there's a new thing, the MySpace comes back and they're going to make the MySpace pixel, I can instantly have it on all the sites the next day.
Gotcha.
And that's where you can start to leverage the idea that don't have to worry about the current trends. If you're interested though, give me a call. And if I answer, we'll talk about it. And if I don't, that's it.
So what are your goals for Chris?
For Chris?
Yeah.
So here's the thing. So for me, I always try to set up people for their own personal success.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that I don't think Chris loves Flex. Chris will never love Flex as much as I do. He can't. It's like having a child. Like he could be the uncle that loves it. He'll never love it as much as somebody loves their own.
Because when you're an uncle, the baby starts crying. You just
it's like your best friend's dog. You're like, your dog's great at your place, but at my place, this is gonna be all right. That's why I get it. So my thought is that whether Chris stays 6 months, 3 years, 10 years, I just want him to be transparent about what he wants out of it. Like, how do you get the satisfaction of today was a good day, and not every day is going to be, but this makes me happy. I'm still being happy here. So if 6 months from now, and this has happened, he's like, I want to learn a little bit more about web design. Yeah. Cool. And what do we do? So I'm like, learn this HTML stuff. I'm going to give you 6 weeks to learn it, and you get a bonus if you learned it all, and you're able to do these things that help me out. But they're not things that I just make up. It's like, no, you're actually going to do something for a client to see if you can do it or not. Because that saves me time. If you're saving me time, that saves me money. And you can make more money doing that. So it's like, so it actually all works within the business model. And it gives people opportunity to do it. I think that, and this is one of my theories, I think that you go to college and you get this sense of what the world is that's so wrong that it really starts people off horribly in their careers. Because they're like, my day's supposed to be everything I want to do all day. I don't understand. And then you start a job where you're doing maybe 90% of the stuff you don't want to do and only 10% of the stuff you do because you're at some entry level, which you should be working, right? And learning about all these other things along the way. And sometimes it's the proprietary process of the business. Sometimes it's something that has nothing to do with anything you like, but 10% of the time they let me edit videos. And you spend the rest of your life trying to up the percentage of what you do during the day to something more that you like.
Yeah.
That's like, I know it's super simple, like basic, I know, but that's kind of how I feel about the longevity of like someone's career. So when Chris came to me and we talked about it, I'm like, you're going to be doing 20% of the things that you like to do when this thing starts. I was like, and a lot of it's going to be work that you don't want. I was like, but I just want you to grow within that because you have to understand that that's how it starts. And you earn higher percentages of doing more of what you want. I'm at the position right now where the money doesn't matter as much to me as like, me waking up and being like, today I want to edit a sweet video. And knowing that I can block off 2 hours to edit a sweet video, that makes me happy. Yeah. The money is not attached to that. It's like waking up and knowing that I can do what I want to do. But I earned it. I did years of things that I didn't want to do to learn the things that I did. Now I was fortunate some of the positions that I got, I always worked with small companies. So I was able to grow quickly and do a bunch of different things. And it's like, so starting out, it's like dating. You don't date to find out what you like, you date to find out what you don't like. You date to find out the things that you should avoid. Right? Yeah. So it's the same thing in the business, right? Like you said, like, oh wow, I had to do a bunch of like I don't want to do that anymore. and you just try to not find that in your next job. So I just think that there's a lot of growth that can be had within those percentages, because the truth is, he can tell me today, I want 50% of my job to be editing video, and I want 50% of my job to do web development. And you say, okay. And then 10 days from now, he just loses his taste for video. Now what happens? In a normal job, he sticks doing video and does poorer and poorer work because it doesn't interest him anymore. Yeah. So now who's at a real loss? Well, it depends on the size of the company, but in a small company, it's the company that loses, right? Because he's not doing the same work. So I love the idea of keeping people motivated and building companies that are, as long as you're into kind of tech and creative, I can find a spot for you because I'll create work that makes sense for you. Yeah. He likes doing this kind of stuff. I was like, you like marketing? Cool, we're gonna do Facebook advertising. Because Facebook advertises leverages the marketing concepts with the creative concepts that you're already good at. Yeah. Let's see what we can do with that. Yeah. I think that's a much more interesting way to build a company. I've always wanted to build a people first company. It's tough, I think, especially at scale.
Yeah. Like this week, I've been really getting into motion graphics, so that's what I've been doing. Learning how to get better at that. And obviously that can help our company because we can make cool motion graphics.
And Photoshop, and like whatever I think the things that helped me in my career, no matter what I was doing, I try to just blend it out. This is what I did, give it a try. I'm basically a textbook of what you can try to do to kind of further yourself in your career.
So you talked about things that help you in your career. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received? Check the time real quick.
Ooh, that's the best
piece of advice
that I've ever received. Chris, go first. Let me think about it for a second.
I don't know. You go first. I gotta think about it for a second.
All right, switch to a different one because I got like 3 questions that I ask everybody. There's an 18-year-old Joe TEBALDI on the phone. You actually pick up, and you have to give this 18-year-old Joe some advice. What do you give?
Yeah, so that one, it's one of these things where I would probably tell myself, trust your gut. Yeah. You're doing things for the right reasons. Yeah. And know that, so it's 18-year-old, I would probably say try to be more positive than you're being right now. The world is only as ugly as you want it to be. I'm really have a big push of positivity, like just putting good energy into the world and knowing that you may get nothing back for it, but I think that there's something that satisfies you internally over the long run that, the past few years I've really been preaching positivity, much so in my family and then even outside to my friends, and I try to just cut out negative energies around me. I think my quality of life has gone up exponentially, so I think that's probably what I like, just start to get on you're more negative than you think. Yeah. Start thinking more positively, for sure.
What about you? 18-year-old Chris.
It's like last year.
Yeah, it's like 18-year-old Chris. Well,
Chris is now 22.
Yeah. So 4 years ago. Honestly, so I would probably say try to keep doing what you're doing, because what I mean by that is ever since since I was born, I've always been a person that hates just sitting around doing nothing or just sitting indoors watching TV. I always have to be doing something. When I was 6 years old, I would wake up 6 a.m., go out my front door and knock on my neighbors' doors and try to play with my friends when 6 a.m. And so my mom would have to somehow lock the door so I couldn't leave the house and go disrupt the neighborhood. And I don't know, I've just always had that I want to be doing something at all times type mindset. I think that's why I sleep so bad. And
you guys both sleep bad. This is the stories that I've heard.
Really unhealthy sleeping patterns.
Yeah, so and with that, I think has been where I've been able to grow the most, because if I'm sitting around, I'll just realize, hey, I want to do something. I want to learn how to do something. So I'll go on YouTube and learn how to do something. And like he said, I've taught myself everything I've learned to do, and without that quality that I've just talked about, I don't think I would have gone and learned that stuff.
Just stop.
Yeah, I also got to go in 10 minutes. I'm leaving out the door in 10 minutes.
Yeah, so I don't think I would have pushed myself to learn how to edit a video or learn half the stuff that I know now. And if I didn't learn that stuff, I wouldn't have this job, or I wouldn't be where I am right now. So just having that quality, I think, is something I would tell myself. Just don't change.
What about if there's a random 18-year-old that calls you up and says, hey, what you're doing, I want to be the next Joe, or I want to be the next Chris? What do you tell those kids?
Well, do I want to be the next Chris or the next Joe? Because they're two very different people.
You for Joe, me for Chris, yeah.
So I think like the cornerstone of who I am is like over delivering on empathy, like just really trying to understand why people are the way they are and the way they think. I think that if I had to pick one innate thing that I was like born with, it was the ability to kind of see something from somebody else's shoes, but not tainted by my own thoughts, like actually putting myself in someone else's shoes. And I think it kind of ties into the whole positivity thing, being able to see someone that's hurting and yelling at you. And honestly, like I think some of the best microcosms of it was at Walgreens, where you've never seen a person more pissed than when their photos are messed up. It's unbelievable. So I became quickly the guy that anytime something went wrong in the photo department, it was like, Joe, come to photo. And I already knew what it was, right? It was a mother that just shot a birthday party with her Fujifilm camera and thinking that she was going to be the next, photographer and get some pictures, and they're all pretty crappy, but not because we developed them improperly, but because the camera wasn't working the right way, or they weren't in focus. And you sit there and they would scream at me. I had a woman tell me that like I'm never gonna make it anywhere in life. Like just some of the most horrible things that you can that's like you're ruining my day. Like think about the kids that like these kids in these pictures, like you're ruining their life, like craziness. And I would sit there and in my head, I think there was this thought that would kick in, and I'm like, something else is bothering. Like there's no way that this could make it. Like there's other stressors in your life that are impacting you. So I just go, I'm like, I wish there was something I could do for you. I can give you 15%. Like there's nothing I can do, but I understand. Like I understand that you're upset. And I think that I have tattooed on my arm right here, probably my favorite tattoo, I have a ton of them. It says, listen to understand. And I think that a lot of people, best advice I've ever given. There you go, loop it right back.
There you go.
So I think that we live in a world where communication is dictated by listening to respond.
Yeah.
I listen to just enough of what you say, and then my mind starts thinking about what I'm going to say back to you. And I miss some of the actual substance of what you're trying to get across.
People are just waiting to speak their turn.
They just want their turn. Everybody wants to have their turn. And I think that delivering that amount of patience and empathy and like actually listening to people gives you so much more insight, and you can tell. Like you can tell when someone's listening to you. And I preach it every day. Like just listen to actually understand. So that's probably what I would tell an 18-year-old that wants to be like me.
Mine's kind of it's on that line, but a little different. So my sister has a nonprofit, and it's called I Love Nice People. And
that's right.
Yeah, and they sell T-shirts, mugs, whatever.
Does Flex sell T-shirts? Keep going.
And I think ever since she made that, I've kind of realized that just being nice to people can really change your life. Like if you're nice to someone and become friends with them, you'll find fulfillment in that friendship. Like you and me, we have a good friendship, and I enjoy seeing you every day. Mm-hmm. I enjoy seeing you every day, and just joking around, having a good time, and the ability to have those friends all stems from just being a nice person, right? So like if I was a mean guy and always pissed you off, you probably wouldn't want to hang out with me, right? So I think I would just tell an 18-year-old, don't be too caught up in your ego or, any of that stuff. Just be a nice guy, and it'll get you far in life, I think. Because, people will like you more. You'll have a lot better friendships, I think. And I think having good friendships in life is one of the biggest, most fulfilling things you can have.
Well, and I think this is a testament to... So recently, Chris moved to Colorado to work for a company that was doing something that I didn't really have a ton of experience in, but it was a cool opportunity. So he moved out there, didn't become anything. So he started thinking about moving back here, and the biggest stressor for Chris was like, well, I don't have anything to come back to. Like I can do some video stuff, I can help out coaching at the gym. And it's just like through the people that Chris has been able to connect with, have positive encounters with, being friendly, and then impress, like teaching himself how to do stuff. Yeah. That's like landed him a bunch of opportunities to where he's like, working all the time, despite the fact that he was worried that he wasn't going to find work.
Yeah, and so, the more you're able to be nice to people and just create good friendships, I think the better your life will be. It may not get you a job, but it might get you, a really good friendship or just a good experience throughout the day. So I don't know. I think after my sister started that company, it really did, resonate with me, because being nice to people is just a good way to get through in life.
I think it's also really important to be introspective. Like, that's something I've been preaching since I was young, but I didn't even really understand what it meant to be introspective. But I think working remotely for so long had given me such a good opportunity to look inwards, because when there's no one telling you what to do every day, it's like it's on you, and you have to find out. So you really find. I think everybody should have to work remotely for a year of their life, not because everyone should work remotely, but because doing it forces you to like figure things out about yourself. Right. And it's funny because you start to realize what some of these like age-old adages mean when you get older. Like, you get into an interview and the first, like, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And when you're in college and you're trying to be taught what to say, like, I'm a perfectionist, those kinds of things are like, what they're actually trying to see is like, do you know yourself?
Right.
Do you come here with a stock answer? And don't blow my mind with this answer that you think is creative. Be honest with me. Like, do you know what your strengths are? I actually think that I'd have more respect for someone that came in and said, I'm still trying to find out what my strengths are. That just means that at least they're introspective enough to know that they don't know. And sometimes that's the hardest thing to stomach. But it really makes you a totally different person, because you help define yourself. Yeah. And now how you define yourself is how you outward to other people without, you're subconsciously acting a certain way because you want to be perceived that way. Yeah. And don't be afraid to change. Dressing differently seems like this is just a small thing, but like, I've always wanted to dress differently than I did in like these different, like I was an athlete, so you can't dress like this, and all these weird statures that come around, like because of the school you go to, the people you hang out with, and then one day you dress a little different and someone goes, why are you dressed like that? And when you're younger, it's very hard to be like, because I want to, unless you're going to be one of those rebels that's like, I do whatever I want. It's like, I get what you're saying, but you don't actually do whatever you want. Just be like, actually, this is how I want to dress, and I feel very comfortable like this, or I want to feel like this. And you can make a life for yourself doing those little things kind of along the way. Yeah. Boom. Look at him.
That's it.
Look at him. He needs another coffee now.
Well, fellas, thank you very much. That's all I got.
No, thanks. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Definitely come back whenever you want.
Yeah, I will. I feel like there's a bunch of other stuff that we could talk about, that we did talk about.
We could literally just do this every Thursday, Friday. I do it every week. Me and Chris do this for 30 minutes every morning.
More than 30 minutes.
Well, I gotta, I literally have to run.
Yeah,
I gotta go pick up my cat from the shelter before they charge us $50.
Oh, goodness, that's not good.
All right, Fred, thanks for having us.
Yeah, man, that was a lot of fun. It's enjoyable.